What if I told you that you've been living the same nightmare for over 1,000 years? That every time you look in the mirror and hate what you see, you're channeling the ghost of a medieval nun who starved herself to death, a Victorian woman who literally crushed her organs for beauty, and millions of women who died pursuing the impossible? Before we dig into centuries of body horror, shame, and fashion so awful it makes Crocs look sexy, hit that like button like you're punching the Pope who banned your beard. Subscribe, or I swear by St. Augustine's holy girdle, I'll show you my ankles. Again, comment your worst haircut. Now let's go back, way back, to the beginning of my curse. I am you. Yeah, you heard me. I'm the queen, the mistress, the shadow in the mirror who's been chasing beauty's crown since the Tang Dynasty's golden age, through medieval courts, to your Instagram feed in 2025. My face, it's been painted with crushed pearls, stained with saffron, and now filtered with AI. But every stroke of kohl, every layer of silk, every viral makeup tutorial, it's all been a fight to survive. Beauty ain't just skin deep, fam. It's a blade, a throne, a curse. And I've been bleeding for it for centuries. Chang'an, the heart of the Tang Empire. The city's alive with the clatter of horse hooves, the scent of roasted chestnuts, and the hum of silk markets. I'm the emperor's favorite concubine, draped in robes so heavy they feel like chains. My skin slathered in lead-white paste. Yeah, that's right, poison to make me look like a porcelain doll. The court ladies whisper, their breath sour with envy. Her face is the moon itself, but they don't see the blisters forming under my makeup, the way my hands shake as I apply it. Beauty's my power, but it's also my cage. The emperor, he's obsessed. His eyes rake over me like I'm a jade statue, not a woman. He gifts me a mirror, polished bronze, cold as death. Keep your beauty eternal, he says. But that night, I see her in the reflection. A shadow with no face, her fingers clawing at my throat. She whispers, "You'll never be enough." The curse begins. Every night, she's there, her nails scraping my dreams, promising I'll pay for every glance I steal. You'll ever felt that? That voice in your head saying you ain't it no matter how many likes you get? The emperor's wife, Empress Wu, ain't playing. She's the real boss, running the empire while he's distracted by my face. She knows beauty's a weapon, but she wields it differently, through fear, not allure. She sends me a gift, a vial of rose water. I pour it out, and it hisses, eating through the floor. Poison. She wants me gone, but I'm too valuable to the emperor. So I double down. More makeup, tighter corsets, hairpins sharp enough to kill. I'm not just surviving. I'm fighting for the throne of his heart. Sound familiar? Like trying to stay relevant in a world obsessed with the next big thing. The palace smells of incense and betrayal. My silk slippers whisper against marble floors. The mirror's edge cuts my palm, and blood drips, red as the emperor's seal. Every night, I hear her, the shadow, giggling in the dark, her voice like broken glass. Fast forward to Kyoto, Heian period. I'm reborn as a court lady, serving a princess who makes Cardi B look low-key. Beauty's different here. Blackened teeth, shaved brows, hair so long it sweeps the floor like a funeral shroud. They call it ohaguro, staining your teeth black to show you're high class. Tastes like iron and regret, but I do it. Why? 'Cause the court's a snake pit. One wrong move and you're out. The princess loves me. Too much. She's got this vibe like she wants to be me. Creepy, right? One night, I'm brushing my hair, 10 feet of it, when the shadow from the mirror crawls out. Her teeth are black too, but they're sharp, dripping ink. She grabs my wrist, hissing, "Give me your face." I scream, but the court ladies think I'm mad. They lock me in a shrine, saying I'm possessed. The shadow visits every night, carving words into my skin. Beauty is pain. I fight back, painting my face, hiding the scars. But the princess notices. She starts copying me. My walk, my laugh, my face. One day, I catch her wearing my kimono, her teeth stained, smiling like she's me. Modern equivalent. Someone stealing your whole aesthetic on Insta, but make it demonic. The princess's obsession is my leverage. I play along, teaching her my tricks, how to layer rice powder, how to tilt your head just right. But I'm playing a dangerous game. She's got the emperor's ear, and I'm just a mistress. If she snaps, I'm done. So I keep her close, feeding her ego, while the shadow feeds on my fear. It's a psychological chess match, and I'm one move from checkmate. The air's thick with plum blossom perfume, but it can't mask the mildew in the shrine. My blackened teeth ache, and the shadow's claws leave frost on my skin. The princess's laughter echoes, too close, too much like mine. Now I'm in Josian, a scholar's mistress in a hanbok so tight I can barely breathe. Beauty here is restraint. Pale skin, small lips, hair coiled like a serpent. They use ginseng and honey masks, but I'm still haunted. The shadow's stronger now, her face half mine, half rot. She whispers that beauty's a lie, that I'll never outrun her. I'm starting to believe her. My lover, a scholar official, needs me to charm the court to secure his position. But his wife knows. She's got eyes everywhere like a K-drama villain. She sends me a comb, laced with a curse. Every time I use it, my hair falls out in clumps. I'm desperate, y'all. I'm pouring rice wine on altars, praying to banish the shadow. But she laughs, her breath like graveyard dirt. I'm losing myself, piece by piece, just to stay beautiful. One night, I wake to find my reflection moving without me. The shadow steps out, wearing my face, and walks into the court. She's me, but better, flawless, untouchable. The scholar falls for her. The court bows to her. I'm left in the dark, my skin cracking like old porcelain. I fight back, clawing my way into the light, but every mirror shows her now, not me. It's like being cancelled in real time, but with a side of supernatural terror. The handbox silk scratches my raw skin. The scholar's ink-stained fingers brush my cheek, but his eyes see her. The shadow's laughter smells of rotting lotus, and my screams echo in empty halls. Now I'm here in your world. I'm a beauty influencer, slaying on TikTok, my face filtered to perfection. But the shadow's still here, lurking in my ring light's glow. Beauty standards? They're worse now. Medieval lead paste is gone. But we've got fillers, lasers, and apps that reshape your soul. I'm chasing likes, but every comment cuts. You're mid, too old, not enough. The shadow feeds on it. Her claws in my DMs. Her voice in every hate comment. My manager's the new emperor, pushing me to post more, be more. My followers? They're the court, judging every move. I'm trapped in a cycle, new trends, new products, new face. But the shadow's running the show now. She hacks my account, posts videos of me, unfiltered, raw, wrong. My followers drop like flies. It's clout or nothing, and I'm losing. One night, my phone screen cracks, and she crawls out. My face, but twisted, her eyes black voids. She's live streaming, telling the world my secrets. The pain, the fear, the curse. I grab a mirror, smash it, but she's in every shard. I'm fighting for my life, my brand, myself. It's a horror show, like Black Mirror meets your worst nightmare. The ring light buzzes, too bright, burning my eyes. My phone vibrates with notifications, each one a dagger. The shadow's touch is cold, like a dead phone battery, and her laugh is a distorted TikTok sound. I've been running for centuries, from Chang'an to Seoul to your screen. Beauty's my crown, but it's also my curse. The shadow wants my face, my power, my you. But I'm done. I'm taking her down. I'm burning the mirrors, smashing the filters, screaming into the void. This is my story, my fight. And I'm not just surviving, I'm slaying. Medieval England, Coldstone Monastery, circa 1231. Imagine fearing eyebrows so much you'd burn women alive for plucking them. Today, you inject acid into your forehead and call it maintenance. Me, I carved my face with a shard of glass, because they told me my nose was pride, and my eyes were lust. You grow up in a monastery and you learn real quick. Beauty is dangerous. You smell like boiled cabbage every day of your life, but somehow you're still the ugly one. That's the first joke. The second is when Brother Clement tells you, without even flinching, that your nose is a spiritual threat. Too sharp, too long, points up like pride. He taps it like he's poking the devil himself. And your eyes? Too curious, too wide, too alive. He says you look at the world like you want to own it. And maybe you do, just a little, but not here. Here, every emotion is an enemy of the soul. They burn mirrors in Coldstone, smash them with hammers and quote Leviticus while doing it. You hide a sliver under your mattress, barely bigger than your palm. You don't use it to admire yourself. Not really. You just want to see yourself. Prove that you're still here, still human under the robe and rot. But even that's a sin. They catch you holding it one night right before prayer. You're dragged to the altar barefoot, your knees slammed into cracked beans while they chant. Pride goeth before the fall. You're forced to confess that you loved yourself. And worse, that you wanted to be beautiful. The truth? You still do. You think you've seen mirrors. But then Father Elric brings that thing into his quarters. Carved in black wood, framed in screaming angels with their wings snapped off. It doesn't show your face. Not really. It shows your future, or your punishment. You lean in, and what you see is you years from now, skin shredded like parchment, one eye hanging loose, nose flattened into your skull, smile ripped at the seams. You flinch, but the next night you go back, and the next, and again, and again. You're not looking for beauty anymore. You're looking for proof that you still matter. They hand you the shard without words. Brother Thomas drops it in your palm after evening prayer, like it's a gift from the Holy Ghost. You stare at your reflection in the jagged edge, and you begin. You start with your brow, The one they said was sinful. Then your cheeks too soft, your lips too red. The blood comes quick. Holy, they say. You slice away the parts they told you were tempting. You are purifying yourself. When they find you, you're half-conscious, blood pooled around your knees, whispering scripture and smiling. They say you've been blessed. You say you've been seen. Then comes the friar, rides in wearing fur-lined robes, oils in his beard, and breath like wine. He preaches fire and repentance, calls beauty the devil's bait, says vanity is what brought down Babylon, that your desire to be seen is what invites hell to your doorstep. Then he winks at the miller's daughter, tells her she has eyes like Saint Mary. You know a fraud when you smell one, and he smells like rose oil and goat's hit. You think this is just the dark ages? You scroll past 10,000 faces every day, each one smoother than the last, and you still wonder if you're enough. You poke, pluck, peel, inject, and tighten. You call it routine. You call it glow up. But deep down, you're still kneeling in front of that same cursed mirror. You're still trying to carve yourself holy. You left the monastery, but the shame, it followed. You don't need candles or cloisters anymore. The mirror's in your pocket. The devil's in your algorithms. And you're still convinced that to be beautiful is to be guilty. France, 1350 mid-Black Death. Back then, men wanted to be wide like oxen. Now they want six-packs and hollow cheeks. Still can't cry though. They called you Twiggy. You remember how their laughter cracked through your bones louder than the church bells on Sunday. Your tunic hung off your shoulders like a scarecrow. Your limbs? All angles and shame. A squire among giants. Boys carved from stone. And you? You padded your chest with rags. Strapped flour sacks to your arms. You'd rather suffocate under wool than let them see your collarbones. A real knight is forged in blood and brawn, they said. A man should cast a shadow when he walks. You barely cast a line. But then he looked at you. He was the blacksmith's son. Sweat-slicked, sunburned, jaw like a war hammer. You thought maybe if you stood beside him long enough, some of his strength would rub off. You watched him hammer iron like he was born with thunder in his veins. He caught you watching once. Want to learn? You nodded too fast. He laughed, soft. You've got nice hands. Not like mine. Yours are clean. He held your hands longer than he should have. That night you couldn't sleep. Not because of shame, but because it felt good. To be seen. To be soft. To want. Then came the grotesque night. They said he couldn't die. That the plague passed him over out of fear. Sir Morgrin, armor rusted to his skin, mouth like a broken grave. He rode a horse that looked as sick as the air smelled. He found you in the woods, alone, dreaming of someone else's mouth. You want to be a man? You want to be made? Then take one down. He dropped a rusted longsword at your feet, still wet with something thick. Not blood, not water. Kill what softens you, or you'll rot with it. You should have run. The blacksmith's son smiled when he saw you. You look different, he said. Stronger. You kissed him. He kissed you back. And for a second, just one, you believed you could live in that moment forever. But Sir Morgrin's voice echoed. Kill what softens you. And your hand moved before your soul caught up. The blade was clumsy. He gasped, so surprised. Blood ran from his chest like the forge had split him open. He whispered, "Was I enough?" You buried him behind the stables. Said a prayer. Said it wrong. The night smiled as he dubbed you with his infected hand. Now you're one of us. Your armor felt too tight. Your skin itched. But you were a man, right? A knight. A warrior. Your name whispered across battlefields. But no one knew you screamed into your helmet every night. Because he never left. The plague took the town. Black boils. Screams. Burning bodies. But not you. No, you lived. You kept living. He came every night now. His skin melted like wax. His lips bloated and blue. Was I enough? He asks. Every night. Your armor fuses to your skin. Your ribs grow into the steel. You can't take it off, not ever. Because knights don't shed. Not their armor. Not their sins. You try to speak. But your mouth is dry iron. Your throat, a forge full of ash. He keeps coming. Sits at the edge of your bed. Plague-riddled fingers caressing your rusted gauntlets. You chose this, he whispers. You chose to kill love for armor. And you weep, but only on the inside. Nights don't cry. Your gym mirror becomes your battlefield. Protein powder. Self-hate. Bulking season. You zoom in on every angle. Your arms. Too thin. Your chest. Not popping. Your face. Too soft. You pad yourself differently now. Not with rags. With numbers. Representatives, followers. Testosterone levels. Someone tells you real men don't skip leg day. Another says, you're too pretty to be hot. You're stuck. Back then, men wanted to be wide like oxen. Now they want abs like cheese graters and cheeks so hollow you could store secrets in them. Still can't cry though. You scroll past a photo of him. Your first boyfriend. Your first kill. No likes. Just a blank face and the caption. Was I enough? So the next time you wish your shoulders were broader. When you curse. Italy, 1492, Age of Silk and Secrets. I wore more lace than a wedding cake and still got called rat face. Venice was fashion forward. My chin? Not so much. You weren't born into beauty. You were born into linen scraps and dye stains. The son of a tailor, assistant to a ghost of a man who called you Uggo more often than your name. Your job? To stitch wealth onto other people's backs. To cinch their waists, layer their silks, drape their sins in velvet. They paid in ducats and compliments. You were paid in threadbare meals and sideways glances. But oh, the fabrics. Silks from the Orient. Lace from Flanders. You touched them the way a starving man touches bread. One day you snapped. You stole 3 fingers' worth of gold-threaded silk. 2 crimson panels. And 1 satin ribbon the color of stolen love. You stitched yourself into something divine. You built yourself like a god. A doublet so tight it made your ribs scream. A mask, half porcelain, half pity, with a long aquiline nose and painted lips that never trembled like yours did. Your shoes? Stolen. Your swagger? Forged in mirrors. You weren't you anymore. You were Prince Lucian of House di Nate. A ghost noble. A dream. A lie that walked like a man. You crashed the masquerade on the Grand Canal like a comet in borrowed boots. Lanterns danced across water. Music like melted silver. Perfume so thick you could taste it. People looked at you. wanted you. They whispered, "Who is he?" And for once, it felt good to be a mystery. But every stage needs a villain. He was there. Alessio, your rival at the tailor's shop. The real golden boy. Real jawline, real noble clients. Real ego. He saw right through you. And he ripped off your mask in the middle of a waltz. Gasps. Laughter. Rat face. Someone giggled. He stitched himself a soul. A tomato hit your cheek. Then a fig. Then the truth. You fled. Down stone stairs slick with canal spit. Past sewer grates and holy statues and the sound of your own breathing breaking apart. Into the catacombs, where masks are buried with the dead. They spoke, not all at once, soft at first, like silk sliding over your ear. Such a shame about the chin. Those cheekbones? We could do better. Borrow someone's smile. Stitch it in. You found the old plague masks, leather and bone long as guilt. You tried them on, but they didn't fit. Your face was too you, so you made alterations. A patch of skin from a forgotten noble corpse. Lips from a courtesan long gone. A brow that once belonged to a painter. You sewed. You sculpted. You bled. You became a walking collage of envy. Beauty by theft. Identity by cut and paste. Your reflection changed daily, but never said thank you. Soon you didn't need the mask. You were the mask. Your skin, stretched tight over too many stories. Your eyes? Different colors now. One noble blue. One beggar brown. You returned to the masquerades. They didn't recognize you, but they adored you. You danced with duchesses and diplomats, sipping wine through a mouth that wasn't yours, until Alessio saw you again. He narrowed his eyes. Lucian, you smiled, all 30 stolen teeth. You're late, you said. I already took everything. You didn't kill him, but you did leave him faceless. Now you're on TikTok lip-syncing under ring lights. You've got 3 filters, 2 jawline apps, and a Sephora cart worth more than rent. You don't wear masks technically, but you do contour your nose so hard your ancestors wince. Every post is a performance. Every DM a costume change. You're that hot one. But you feel like the stitch job never ends. You wake up and see 10 versions of yourself. None of them real. Your mirror whispers, that chin needs work. Smile's tired. Borrow someone else's glow. So you do. One more filter. One more surgery. One more lie. You scroll past your own photo. You don't recognize it. But you double tap anyway. So next time you wish your face were different. Your lips fuller. Your nose straighter. Your skin smoother. Ask yourself, how much of me is mine? Because somewhere in the digital catacombs, a mask is whispering, we can fix that. And all it costs is you. England 1666, year of ash, wigs, and powdered narcissism. Men wore high heels, corsets, lipstick, and no one blinked. Now if your socks match your shirt, you're called a soft boy. You used to be plain, invisible, the kind of servant people walked through, not past. You cleaned chamber pots and held candlelight steady while lords powdered their arrogance. But he noticed you, Lord Belvedere. He said your cheekbones had potential. Your nose was manageable. Your face, he said, was a canvas cursed by simplicity. Let me fix you, he whispered, and like a fool in velvet chains you said yes. He He plucked your eyebrows until they screamed, bleached your teeth with urine and ground coral, pressed rouge into your cheeks until your skin blistered, painted your lips with crushed cherries. You became his doll, his project, his pet, and you loved it. The mirrors loved you back. The noble ladies called you a charming boy cherub. You wore brocade jackets worth more than your soul. Your days were drenched in rose water and self-delusion. Wigs 3 stories tall. Silk stockings so tight they cut off thought. Shoes with heels that stabbed the earth into submission. He made you walk behind him like a trophy. Smile, he'd say. Pout. Let them envy you. And they did. You were the scandal in every whisper, the glittering whore of the ballroom. But you didn't care. You were beautiful. You were seen. For the first time in your life you mattered. Then the scandal broke. Lord Belvedere caught in bed with the Chancellor's second son. Panic, outrage, powdered panic. I was bewitched, he cried in court. By him, his deviant face, his slutty little smirk. You were dragged from your room mid-rouge. They stripped your wig, ripped your silks, held you up as a warning. This is what vanity breeds. You nearly lost your head. Literally. The crowd jeered. The same ladies who once kissed your gloved hand now called you filth. And then, the fire. London burned like Judgment Day in heels. The sky was orange with God's rage, or maybe just some baker's mistake. But either way, it saved you. You escaped the gallows through chaos. Smoke in your throat, ash in your painted pores. You ran barefoot through the soot, your face cracking from heat and horror. You collapsed in a burned chapel, mirrors shattered, wigs in piles like corpses. But they weren't still. The wigs twitched, not metaphorically. They twitched like dying rats. One lunged. Lice, fat, black, hissing, burst from the curls like sins from a confession. One entered your ear, chewed. You screamed, but it didn't matter, because now the powder began to itch, burn, peel. You clawed at your face, and underneath the rouge and silk, you saw rot, sag, a skull grinning where your vanity used to be. You weren't a doll. You were a corpse wearing a costume. The powder had hidden it. Belvedere had painted it. And now it was you. You moisturize. Not out of vanity, out of fear. You use filters. Just one. Maybe 2. Maybe 12. People call you extra when your nails match your fit. They mock your skincare routine, your fashion sense. They don't understand. You survived 1,666 in heels. You've bled for beauty. You've burned for it. And sometimes late at night, when your AirPods buzz, you swear you hear a whisper. Smile, my doll. Let them envy you. The powder never leaves. You check the mirror. Is that blush? Or the beginning of rot? So next time someone mocks your look, your softness, your shimmer, your self-expression, tell them this: I was almost executed for being fabulous, and survived the fire of God in heels. What did you do this week? Because somewhere beneath the city, in a burned-out closet full of wigs, a whisper still lingers. Powder up, pretty thing. You've got a legacy to keep. France, 1789, the guillotine age. I just wanted a jawline like Robespierre's. Instead, I got banned from 3 taverns for staring at men's chins too long. You weren't born rich, or charming, or symmetrical. But you could paint. And God, you tried. Portraiture was your calling. Faces like gods, muscles like marble, expressions so noble they farted freedom. But you had a problem. Men didn't look like that. Their chins drooped, their noses bent, their eyes rolled back mid-session from boredom and brandy. So you cheated. You perfected them. You gave every man a hero's jaw, a Greek nose, and the glare of a lion about to pass moral judgment. Your clients loved it until the revolution came, and the guillotine started doing your job, but faster. The salons shut down. The nobles lost their heads, literally. And you became a portrait artist for the dead. Vive la Republique, they said. Now paint this duke's corpse for the newspaper. You adapted. At first you were horrified, then fascinated, then inspired. There was something beautiful about a headless body. So clean, so even, so symmetrical. You started drawing the guillotine from memory, over and over. One night, drunk and spiraling, you noticed your ears didn't match. One lopsided, one flared. Disgraceful. You grabbed a knife, sliced the bigger one down. Blood soaked your palate and you called it art. Self-portrait, obedience to balance. You never healed properly, but symmetry, achieved. Then came Etienne, a Jacobin revolutionary with a mouth full of fury and a closet full of plain tunics. You loved him. He hated mirrors. Vanity is treason, he said. Beauty belongs to kings, not the people. He kissed you like he was lighting a fuse, burned your paintings, banned your rouge, and hid your mirror. You obeyed. You needed him, but you missed your face. You missed perfection, and perfection had no place in the new world. You started seeing the headless as divine. No wrinkles, no weakness, no asymmetry, just clean lines, absolute silence. One night you sketched your own severed head. You loved it. The jawline was flawless. The eyes? Closed, finally at peace. The symmetry? Holy. I could do it, you whispered. I could be art. Etienne found the sketch, burned it. You tried again. You painted it larger, in oil. He took away your paints. But the image stayed with you, lurking behind your eyes, calling you. You sit before the guillotine now. You're not being executed. Not yet. You're sketching again. Every drop of blood. Every severed nobility. Every neck like a blank canvas. And the horror? You're not afraid anymore. You're jealous. You trace your finger down your own throat, right where the blade would kiss. Now you get filler to balance your cheekbones. You stare at your iPhone camera like it's a guillotine. You face-tune your jawline into oblivion. Symmetry is hot, the apps say, but too much and you look uncanny, like a wax doll in a wind tunnel. You're haunted by jawlines, by models named Luca with perfect chins and no pores. You scroll. You zoom. You crop your ears out of selfies. Sometimes you dream of Etienne. Sometimes you dream of the guillotine. But mostly you dream of finally seeing your reflection and not flinching. So yeah, maybe you just wanted to paint beautiful men. Maybe you just wanted to be one. But now, you're a relic of a time when being seen was everything, and losing your head was just another path to perfection. Be honest. England, 1852 Victorian factory boom. Back then it was coal dust and leather. Now it's creatine and TikTok lighting. Different tools, same fear. You wake before the sun, before the rats, before the factory whistle slices the air like a guillotine. You scrub your face with cold water and a brick-like bar of masculine soap that promises to strip the dirt and the weakness off your flesh. It doesn't work. The soot's not just on your face. It's in your pores, your lungs, your blood. You look in the cracked window pane and wonder when your jaw got so soft, so round, so wrong. Posters outside show heroes with angular faces, Roman noses, and the posture of kings. You look like a chimney sweep that got dragged backward through a smokestack. You save every shilling, skip meals, smuggle nails in your pockets to sell for extra coin. Not for food, for a jaw brace, an iron contraption you mail order from London. It's supposed to reshape the lower face into a commanding masculine structure. You try sleeping in it, cuts your gums. You bleed down your chin, but you think, this is what progress tastes like. You also buy a back straightener, tight wool corsetry for men. You wear it under your uniform. You faint once from lack of breath. They call you Miss Molly the posture doll. One day, a foreman catches you adjusting your jaw brace mid-shift. What's this then? Trying to be a model for the queen. He laughs. The others join in. One of them pulls the brace off your head and smashes it under his boot. You try to fight back. You lose. 2 cracked ribs and a termination notice later. You're out in the rain, your coin gone, your dignity rotting in the mud. You pass a shop window, see your reflection. Split lip, bruised temple, bent jaw, still ugly. That night you sneak back into the factory. You're not thinking straight. You're thinking about steel bones and symmetrical men. The machines are off, but the shadows aren't. You see them, men with lantern jaws and coal eyes, ghosts of laborers, warped and twisted by their own desires. Their skin is made of soot. Their teeth are perfect, white as polished ivory. They mock you. Wanna be a man, boy? Here, wear my face. One peels his jaw off like a glove. Pulses, still chewing. Another peels open his chest to reveal cogs where a heart should be. You scream. They laugh. One of them grabs your arm. You feel it fusing. Skin turning to iron. Eyes dimming into coal. Jaw stiffening into permanent. Silent rage. You wake up in 2025. Your skin's clear now, sure. Thanks to products, lighting, retinol, and 5-step routines TikTok swore by. Your jaw, sharpened with angles, thanks to shadow contouring and some injectable assistance. But it's the same curse. You still wake up wishing your chin cast a longer shadow, that your profile looked better from a side camera. That you didn't shrink when another man walked by, wider, straighter, more. Back then it was coal dust and leather. Now it's creatine and lighting. Different tools, same fear. What if I'm not enough? The factory never closed. It just changed shape. It's in your gym, your feed, your dating apps, your explore page. It's every filter, every swipe. Every bro and not him comment. And the ghosts, they've evolved. Now they whisper in your DMs. Haunt your selfies. Mock your side profile when you FaceTime. You've spent 1,000 lifetimes trying to look like a man. But the only thing that ever made you one was refusing to give a damn. So what'll it be? Another bar of manly soap? Or will you finally wash off the lie? Let's dig deeper into the furnace or the mirror. You pick. United States, 1929, the Great Depression, silent film era's last gasp. Back then, men couldn't talk in films. Today, men still can't talk, especially about feelings. They called me Tree, not because I was strong, because I was tall, stiff, and made of wood when I acted. I was a background extra in silent films, always in the shadows of men with sharper jaws and better posture. I'd wave at a fake parade, look shocked in a fake courtroom, stand behind leading men whose faces looked sculpted by divine hands, or at least good lighting. My nose was too big, too real. Not Hollywood, the casting lady would say while marking me as atmosphere only. One day a director, slicked hair, gold tooth, fat cigar, pulled me aside. "You want to be a star, don't you, kid? Fix that honker. We'll make you the next Valentino." I nodded like a good dog. I didn't have money for proper rhinoplasty, but I had bleach, a hot iron, some gauze. I stood in front of a mirror, my face lit like a scene, pinched, pressed, burned, bubbled, scabbed, then peeled. I kept the bandages on for days. When I took them off, well, the bleeding stopped eventually. The movie got canceled the next week. The studio ran out of money, or the director fled with a chorus girl, or maybe my new face scared them off. I was left with scars, and no lines, because the talkies had started, and my voice, weak and reedy, didn't match the face I tried to build. I auditioned once more. They said I looked like a villain with asthma. Then came the horror. One night I snuck into the old studio. Dust-coated projectors, rotting celluloid, reels labeled with my name in chalk, test footage, Tree altered. I played one. On the screen there I was, my bandaged, raw face contorting. I was screaming, lips stretched, teeth bared, eyes bulging, but I never made a sound. Scene after scene of silent, endless agony. All I'd ever done was stand still in the background. Yet now I was the star of a film that never ended. Every time I tried to walk away, the projector turned itself back on. My face, screaming, forever. Now it's 2025. I scroll past boys with camera-ready noses and surgically sharpened jawlines. They whisper skincare routines between bench presses, flex in silence while streaming. No one's silent because the tech demands it. They're silent because masculinity still doesn't let us speak without fear. Don't whine. Fix it. Don't talk about the pain. Change your face instead. Same message, different film. I still see that reel. In dreams, in reflections, in reels, in TikToks, in Instagram stories with filters so strong they might as well be iron masks. You're too much nose, too thin, too soft, too loud, too quiet. Not leading man material. Maybe I never was. But neither were most men, they just bled better under bandages. Back then, men couldn't talk in films. Now, we still can't talk, especially about feelings. They called it the golden age of masculinity. But even golden statues crack. They used to call me Johnny Hollywood. That was before Okinawa, before the bunker fire. Before my face melted like wax and the medics held up a mirror and said, "Don't worry, soldier, you'll still eat. That's what matters." No one ever called me handsome again. Not at home. Not in the letters that stopped arriving. Not in the mirror, especially not in the mirror. In 1954, I met Ricky. He ran a dingy gym behind a bakery in Pasadena. Smelled like chalk, iron, and desperation. He wore tank tops in the winter, spoke only in reps and Schwarzenegger quotes. Steel builds soul. Muscle is the only true face of a man. He trained me like a beast. Protein powder, horse pills, liver smoothies, pain. My veins screamed louder than my nightmares. I started to believe it, that I could earn my face back, that maybe beauty wasn't in symmetry, but in size. In volume. 1983. Muscle Beach. The stage was sunlit like Judgment Day. I was oiled, shaved, bronzed, and bulked like a statue carved in rage. Then I collapsed. Mid-flex, mid-strut, vomit everywhere. On my thighs, on my belt, on the judge's shoes. The crowd laughed. Not kindly, not nervously, like it was a sitcom, like I was the punchline. Ricky vanished. Said I dishonored the aesthetic. I returned to the gym one last time. No one there. Just dust, cracked vinyl, and the mirror. It was long, smeared, warped by heat, but I stared into it anyway. Habit. Then it blinked, and I saw him, me, before the war, soft-cheeked, bright-eyed, the Johnny Hollywood they buried in a crater. He looked at my body, the swollen, trembling bulk, the veins, the stretch marks. "This body's not yours," he whispered. "It never fit." I tried to look away, but my reflection didn't follow. He stayed, stuck behind glass, and I realized he'd been trapped there since Okinawa. I'd left my soul in the mirror and built a stranger from trauma. They said the 50s to 80s were the golden age of men. That masculinity wore aviators and flexed on covers. That muscles made you powerful. That war made you worthy. But here's what they never told you. Golden statues crack. Muscles rot. And sometimes your reflection dies before you do. Now it's creatine and LED lighting. Bulking seasons and 4K objects. Same shame. Same fear, just less grease and more filters. Back then, we swallowed liver pills. Now we swallow anxiety and call it discipline. I built my body like a bomb, big, loud, beautiful, and then it exploded. Not in war, not on stage, but in the silence of a gym mirror, where a boy who died in 1945 still whispers, "This was never you. You survived the war, but when your face came back burned, America didn't want to look at you. So you built a new one made of muscle." This is what happens when masculinity becomes a mask, and you can't take it off. United States, 2020s, 2040s. Every time a post got under 10K likes, I cried. I was a man made of steel abs, sculpted jawlines, and scheduled vulnerability. You know how some guys grow up wanting to be astronauts or athletes? I wanted to be followed. And I was, by 1.2 million people. A life coach with a shredded torso sculpted by a Miami surgeon and a jawline you could crack crypto on. I cried publicly once on a podcast. Talked about discipline, grit, healing my inner boy. It went viral. My tears had ads. But when the likes dropped below 10K, I didn't feel real. I felt unseen, like a shadow behind a ring light. I was made in pieces. Hairline? Transplanted. Nose? Trimmed. Abs? Smile? Veneers. The skin? smoothed nightly by a $4,000 Korean serum routine. I became what I thought men were supposed to look like now. Effortless but effort-maxed. Tough but crying just enough. Clean-shaven except when rugged was trending. Every day, I filtered my face until my own mother saved my posts to remember what I used to look like. Then someone stole my face. Literally. Deep-faked my voice, my jaw, my signature motivational grunt laugh. He posted videos as me. Sold better courses. Got better engagement. Even dated the fitness influencer I thought was into me. People said he was the improved version of me. I didn't know how to tell them. I was the deepfake. One morning I went to the mirror, and my reflection didn't move. It blinked, sure, tilted its head, but it didn't copy me. Then it walked away, off the glass, out the room, wearing my smile like it earned it. I screamed, but the mirror just showed the wall. No more face, no more me. I spent weeks trying to film it, but cameras only captured the influencer version. The mask, not the man. Therapists told me to disconnect, to go forest. So I did. 3 weeks. No internet, no ring light, no audience. I tried to see what I looked like without feedback. But every time I caught my reflection in river water or a window pane, it looked disappointed in me, like it missed the filters, like it wanted to go home. He'd see me crying on a podcast, in a $900 hoodie, after jaw surgery, with bleached teeth, and six-pack abs I didn't earn. He'd say, "Thou wearest silk and weepest before thine peers. Art thou priest or princess?" And I'd whisper, "I'm an Alpha Sigma Purpose King with vulnerability coaching for $97 per month." He'd light himself on fire and call it mercy. So after 900 years of slicing, stretching, and spiraling, was I ever truly ugly? Or just born in the wrong century? This isn't just the history of beauty standards. This is your story. The story of how your mind was colonized by ghosts you never knew existed. From holy starvation to Ozempic epidemics, from medieval torture devices to Instagram face filters, you're about to discover that you've been living in a house of horrors that's been under construction for 1,500 years. And the most terrifying part? You're not just the victim of this horror story. You're also the monster. It's 1370, and you're a 23-year-old woman named Catherine in Siena, Italy. But here's the thing, you're not just any woman. You're about to become one of history's most famous saints. And the price? Your life. You wake up in your cold stone cell, and immediately, the voice starts. Not God's voice, though that's what you tell everyone. It's the voice that sounds suspiciously like every woman who's ever lived. You're disgusting. You're too much. You take up too much space. You consume too much. You are too much. Sound familiar? It should. Because Catherine of Siena invented the blueprint for every eating disorder that would follow. Here's where it gets really messed up. Catherine of Siena and other historical figures are believed to have suffered from anorexia nervosa, but in medieval times they called it holy anorexia. These women weren't sick, they were saints. They weren't starving, they were spiritually elevated. You convince yourself that every hunger pang is a prayer. Every missed meal is a step closer to divinity. Your body becomes the enemy that stands between you and God. Sound like any modern diet culture bullshit you've heard lately? But here's the horror movie twist. You're not just starving yourself. You're performing for an audience. Medieval chroniclers recorded every detail of these miraculous fasting girls. The thinner you got, the more crowds gathered. The closer to death you appeared, the more holy you became. Now let me tell you something that'll make your skin crawl. In medieval times, the most beautiful part of a woman's body was her hair. But here's the catch: nobody was supposed to see it. In medieval times, beauty ideals were just as tough as they are now. And the church fathers like Saint Jerome literally preached that women's hair was so sexually powerful it could pull men into sin. Red hair? Girl, you might as well have been branded by Satan himself. Imagine living in a world where your most beautiful feature had to be hidden, where showing your hair was basically flashing your genitals, where your natural beauty was considered a weapon of mass destruction. You spend hours every morning wrapping, hiding, covering the thing that makes you feel most beautiful. You learn to hate the very thing that makes you feel alive. Does this sound like anything you do today? Covering up, hiding, apologizing for existing in your own skin? But wait, it gets worse. The beauty standard wasn't just about hidden hair. It was about looking like you'd never seen sunlight, ever. Medieval beauty was described as having well-shaped bright white shins and smooth thighs, carefully arranged golden blonde tresses, smooth, tender white shoulders. Basically, you needed to look like a vampire. Working-class women who labored outdoors developed tans, which meant they were automatically disqualified from beauty. So if you were wealthy enough to stay indoors, you spent your life in self-imposed prison, avoiding the sun like it would kill you. Here's the truly horrifying part. You develop a solemn expression not because you're serious or contemplative, but because smiling shows joy, and joy suggests you're enjoying earthly pleasures. Beautiful medieval women looked perpetually miserable because happiness was literally ugly. Think about that for a hot minute. In medieval times, the most beautiful women looked sad, hidden, and pale as corpses. They were literally trying to look dead. And we call this the natural beauty of the past? By the high Middle Ages, things got even more twisted. Fashion demanded that women pluck their hairlines back by inches to create impossibly high foreheads. We're talking about voluntarily giving yourself a receding hairline to look intelligent and bred. Medieval beauty standards included preference for a slender, mostly straight figure, and preference for fair hair. But the forehead thing was next-level body modification. These women spent hours with medieval tweezers, basically torture devices, ripping out their hairlines hair by hair. The pain must have been excruciating. The results looked alien. But it was fashion. Baby, sound familiar? Today we inject botulism into our faces and call it beauty. The tools change, but the willingness to mutilate ourselves stays exactly the same. Now here's where your medieval body dysmorphia really kicks into high gear. You're living in a world where your most beautiful feature must be hidden. Looking happy makes you ugly. You need to appear as pale as a corpse. You must voluntarily mutilate your hairline. Eating food is spiritually corrupting. Your body is literally the enemy of your soul. Every single day you wake up in the wrong body. You look in your polished metal mirror because actual mirrors haven't been invented yet, and you see everything that's wrong with you. Your hair is too visible, your skin too dark, your forehead too low, your appetite too strong. You develop what we'd now recognize as severe body dysmorphia, but in medieval times it's just called being a good Christian woman. The torture is so normalized that questioning it is heresy. Let's go back to Catherine of Siena. By age 33, she weighs maybe 70 pounds soaking wet. Her teeth have fallen out from malnutrition. Her hair is thin and brittle. Her skin is translucent. She can barely stand. And everyone calls her the most beautiful, most holy woman who ever lived. She dies in agony, her organs shutting down one by one. The church canonizes her. Artists paint her as the ideal of feminine beauty and virtue. Her emaciated corpse becomes the template for what women should aspire to be. This isn't just history, folks. This is the origin story of every nothing tastes as good as skinny feels meme, every pro-Ana blog, every time someone congratulates you for losing weight when you're actually sick. Catherine of Siena died 650 years ago, but her ghost is alive and well in your DMs, whispering that you'd be more beautiful if you just disappeared a little more each day. The medieval era gave us the foundational lies that still poison our minds today. A virtue equals thinness. Beauty requires suffering. Women's natural bodies are dangerous. Self-denial is spiritually superior. The best woman is one who takes up the least space. And here's the most horrifying part. We never actually left the Middle Ages. We just upgraded our torture devices and called it progress. Okay, so imagine you're time traveling from medieval starvation held directly into Renaissance Italy, and suddenly everyone wants you to be soft, rounded, with an actual belly that sticks out. For maybe the only time in Western history, the beauty ideal actually looked like most women naturally look. Sandro Botticelli's Venus? She's got curves, a soft belly, and zero thigh gap. If she posted a thirst trap on Instagram today, the comments would be brutal. But here's the thing about body dysmorphia. It doesn't disappear just because the beauty standard becomes more achievable. It just shapeshifts into a new monster. So now you're a Renaissance woman, and suddenly your medieval training to be thin is all wrong. Your starved, angular body that would have made you a saint 200 years ago now makes you look poor, sick, and undesirable. The new beauty standard celebrates fertility and abundance. But guess what? You've spent generations learning to hate your natural appetite, your curves, your softness. Now you have to unlearn centuries of body hatred and somehow love the very things you were taught to despise. But plot twist. The Renaissance beauty standard was just as impossible as the medieval one, just in the opposite direction. You needed to be soft but not too soft, curved but not fat, fertile-looking but still ethereally beautiful, and definitely pale. Here's where the Renaissance gets really dark. To achieve that coveted pale complexion, women used ceruse, white lead mixed with vinegar, lead, poison, rubbed all over their faces every single day. The wealthy women of Venice literally painted their faces with toxic heavy metals that slowly destroyed their brains, caused their hair to fall out, and eventually killed them. But hey, at least they looked ethereally pale while dying. And the blonde hair trend? Women in Venice spent hours sitting in the sun with their hair soaked in caustic solutions that burned their scalps raw. They wore special hats with no crowns so the sun could bleach their hair while they literally cooked their brains. Think about that level of cognitive dissonance. You're poisoning yourself to look healthy. You're burning your scalp to look beautiful. You're slowly killing yourself to appear more alive. The Renaissance taught us that beauty standards might flip completely, but the willingness to suffer for them remains constant. Different poison, same result. Then we hit the Baroque era, and honey, if you thought the Renaissance was extra, you ain't seen nothing yet. Welcome to the court of Louis XIV, where everyone, men and women, wore makeup, wigs, and heels. Louis XIV himself was 5 feet 4 inches but wore 4-inch red heels and towering wigs to become a giant. This dude literally invented platform shoes and called himself the Sun King. The level of body dysmorphia was astronomical. But here's where your Baroque body dysmorphia gets really twisted. Beauty isn't just about looking good anymore. It's about looking expensive. The more artificial, the more beautiful. The more it costs, the more valuable you are. Women wore beauty patches, little pieces of silk or velvet glued to their faces, not to cover imperfections, but to show wealth and status. Your face became a canvas for displaying your net worth. In some ways, the Baroque era was weirdly progressive because men and women were equally expected to be beautiful, and equally willing to poison themselves for it. Mercury, lead, arsenic. The court of Versailles was basically a toxic waste dump with really good interior design. But imagine your body dysmorphia when you're competing with everyone, regardless of gender, and the standard is total artificial perfection. Men in the court spent hours having their faces painted, their wigs powdered, their beauty patches precisely placed. The psychological pressure must have been insane. Every social interaction was a beauty competition. Every mirror was a judgment. Every day was a performance where looking natural meant looking poor, and looking poor meant social death. Madame de Pompadour, Louis XV official mistress, was basically the first influencer. When she wore her hair higher, all of France bought more hairpins. When she used a beauty patch, everyone rushed to copy her exact placement. Congratulations, humanity! You invented influencer culture 300 years before Instagram. The same psychological manipulation, the same desperate need to copy someone else's look, the same impossible standard of perfection, just with smallpox instead of face filters. But let's talk about the real horror of Baroque beauty. These people were literally dying from their makeup. Lead poisoning caused madness, hair loss, and death. Mercury treatments for syphilis, which was rampant among the nobility, left people with tremors, tooth loss, and brain damage. The most beautiful people at court were often the sickest. Pale skin might have come from lead poisoning. Thin figures might have been from mercury treatments. That ethereal, otherworldly beauty, it was often the look of someone slowly dying from cosmetic poisoning. And yet the show must go on. Even as their teeth fell out and their hair disappeared, they painted on new teeth and bigger wigs. The performance of beauty became more important than being alive. The Baroque era teaches us something terrifying about body dysmorphia. It scales with available resources. Give people more money, more time, more products, and they don't become more satisfied with their appearance. They become more obsessed with perfection. The courtiers at Versailles had unlimited access to beauty products, professional stylists, and social pressure to look perfect. Result? They became more neurotic about their appearance than any generation before them. Sound like anyone you know? Give people Instagram filters, Sephora, and beauty influencers, and suddenly everyone needs to look like a walking advertisement for human perfection. The Baroque era proves that more beauty options don't create body satisfaction. They create body dysmorphia on steroids. Buckle up, because we're about to enter the most psychologically twisted century in beauty history. If the previous eras were messed up, the Victorian era was a full-blown house of horrors designed specifically to torture women's bodies and minds. Picture this: you're an upper-class Victorian woman, and every morning starts with a ritual that would make medieval torture experts weep with admiration. Your ladies made approaches with your corset, not just any corset, but a steel-boned, waist-crushing device designed to compress your torso into an hourglass so extreme it defies human anatomy. Victorian medical doctors often wrote about the effects of tight lacing on the liver, with autopsies of corseted women revealing elongated, displaced livers, sometimes with permanent rib impressions. Let that sink in. These women's organs had rib prints on them. Their bodies were literally reshaped by their undergarments. The fashionable Victorian waist measured 16 to 18 inches. To put that in perspective, the average woman's waist today is 32 to 35 inches. We're talking about compressing your torso to literally half its natural size. Corsets were begun as young as 7 years old, meaning little girls were put into body-modifying devices before their organs had finished developing. Imagine growing up with your liver, lungs, and stomach permanently rearranged because beauty demanded it. But here's the truly sick part. Victorian women chose this. They fought for the right to compress themselves into impossible shapes. When doctors warned about the health risks, women told them to mind their own business. You wake up every morning and look at your natural 24-inch waist with disgust. You see flabbiness where there's normal human softness. You see failure where there's natural anatomy. The corset becomes your identity. Without it, you don't know who you are. Women became so dependent on corsets that they couldn't support the weight of their upper bodies without them. Their rib cages and spines became so weakened and distorted. Your body dysmorphia is literally structural now. You can't see yourself as beautiful or even functional without artificial support. The psychological dependency was complete. Victorian women felt naked and deformed without their corsets. They'd rather risk fainting, organ damage, and restricted breathing than appear in public with their natural waist size. Victorian women fainted so frequently it became a cultural meme. But this wasn't delicate feminine vapors. This was medical distress from oxygen deprivation and compressed organs. For Victorian women, squeezing into a corset would have been uncomfortable, but probably not torturous, according to some historians. But the fainting couches in every parlor tell a different story. When women collapsed from lack of oxygen, doctors diagnosed female hysteria. Not corset-induced medical emergency. Hysteria. Because obviously the problem was women's unstable minds, not the torture devices they wore every day. This is victim blaming on an industrial scale. Women were literally suffocating themselves for beauty, and when they collapsed, the medical establishment said they were mentally ill. Sound familiar? Today, when women develop eating disorders, we still ask what's wrong with them, not what's wrong with the culture that taught them to hate their bodies. Speaking of eating disorders, this is when anorexia nervosa was first medically identified. Sir William Gull, Queen Victoria's own physician, coined the term in 1873 to describe the self-starvation he observed in upper-class young women. But here's the connection nobody talks about. These women were already living in corsets that made eating physically painful. When you compress your stomach to 16 inches, you literally can't eat normal portions. The corset culture created the perfect conditions for eating disorders to flourish. After Prince Albert died in 1861, Queen Victoria wore black for the remaining 40 years of her life. Her extended mourning wasn't just personal grief. It became a fashion statement that convinced an entire generation that the most beautiful women were the saddest ones. Suddenly, joy became unfashionable. Laughter was vulgar. The ideal Victorian woman looked perpetually on the verge of dying of consumption. Pale, thin, melancholy, and ethereal. Basically, they wanted women to look like beautiful corpses. Victorian men didn't escape the body dysmorphia epidemic. After centuries of peacock-like fashion, men were suddenly expected to dress like undertakers. Color, ornamentation, and any visible effort disappeared from masculine presentation. The Victorian gentleman expressed his status through emotional restraint and sober clothing. Showing feelings became feminine and therefore degrading. Men learned to hate their own emotional expressiveness, their natural desire for beauty and adornment. This created a generation of men who were psychologically constipated, unable to express themselves except through rigid social performance. The suicide rates among Victorian men were astronomical, but nobody connected it to the impossible emotional standards they were expected to meet. Victorian girls could be put in corsets as young as 7 years old, beginning a lifetime of body modification and dysmorphia training. Imagine being a child and learning that your natural body is wrong, shameful, and must be hidden and reshaped. These little girls grew up never knowing their natural waist size, never experiencing full lung capacity, never understanding what their uncorseted bodies looked like. Their body dysmorphia wasn't psychological, it was literally built into their skeletons. The Victorian era institutionalized body hatred and called it morality. They took body dysmorphia and made it mandatory for all respectable women. The beauty standard wasn't just impossible, it was medically dangerous and psychologically destructive. Everything toxic about modern beauty culture can be traced back to Victorian innovations. A body modification starting in childhood. A beauty standards that require medical intervention. A shaming women for their natural appetite, food and otherwise. Equating suffering with virtue. A making body hatred a sign of moral superiority. Pathologizing women who can't achieve impossible standards. The Victorian era didn't just give us corsets. It gave us the psychological framework that still tortures women today. The idea that a good woman is one who voluntarily mutilates herself for beauty, who denies her appetite, who makes herself smaller, who chooses pain over pleasure. And the most horrifying part? We're still doing it. We've just traded steel-boned corsets for Spanx, tight lacing for waist trainers, and Victorian fainting couches for Instagram posts about food poisoning, when we're actually just starving ourselves. The Victorian era ended over a century ago, but Victorian body dysmorphia is alive and well, scrolling through your phone and whispering that you're not trying hard enough to hate yourself. Holy shit, can we talk about the 1920s for a hot minute? Because after centuries of Victorian body prison, women literally said, "Fuck this," and grabbed scissors. You're living through World War I, the Spanish flu pandemic, and the complete collapse of everything your parents believed in. Nothing is certain anymore, not government, not religion, not social norms. And into this chaos steps the flapper. And she is pissed. Louise Brooks, the ultimate flapper icon, didn't just cut her hair. She cut away the entire concept of what women were supposed to be. With her sleek bob, flat chest, and boyish figure, she was basically giving a middle finger to every beauty standard that came before. For the first time in centuries, women deliberately minimized their curves. After generations of corsets pushing breasts up and out, flappers strapped them down. The ideal silhouette was straight up and down, a literal rejection of the reproductive role that had defined women forever. But here's where your 1920s body dysmorphia gets really twisted. You're rebelling against feminine beauty by adopting masculine beauty standards. You're not freeing yourself from body ideals, you're just switching teams. And right in the middle of this gender-bending beauty revolution, Dr. Lulu Hunt Peters drops the first diet bomb. Her 1918 book, Diet and Health, with Key to the Calories, becomes America's first best-selling diet book. Suddenly, food isn't nourishment, it's math. Your body isn't your home. It's a machine that inputs and outputs calories. Peters wrote with evangelical fervor, "You can have one slice of bread at dinner, or you can have a tablespoon of sweet dessert. You cannot have both." This is where modern eating disorders really take off. For the first time, ordinary people are taught to count, measure, restrict, and calculate their food intake obsessively. The flapper might have freed her body from corsets, but Dr. Peters put her mind in a cage of numbers and guilt. Peters also connected weight control to patriotism. Being overweight wasn't just unhealthy or unattractive, it was unpatriotic. Your body became a battleground for national identity. Fast forward to the 1950s, and suddenly everyone wants to forget the war, forget the Depression, forget that women ever had jobs or independence. Enter the housewife beauty myth, brought to you by Madison Avenue and weaponized perfectionism. Marilyn Monroe becomes the new impossible standard, but here's what they don't tell you. Her famous curves came with a 22-inch waist. That's smaller than most runway models today. She might have been curvy, but she was also corseted, dieted, and exercised into a shape that was just as artificial as any other beauty ideal. And let's talk about the men of the 1950s. You had the corporate gray flannel suit guys, emotionally constipated and soul-crushed, versus the rebel bad boys like James Dean and Marlon Brando, who offered controlled rebellion within acceptable limits. But the ultimate 1950s mindfuck was Rock Hudson, the most masculine heartthrob who was secretly gay and forced to construct an entirely fake identity. The beauty standards weren't just controlling women's bodies, they were policing everyone's truth. Here's something really messed up. In 1956, President Eisenhower created the President's Council on Youth Fitness because American kids were getting soft compared to Soviet children. Your weight became a matter of national security. The Cold War literally invaded your body image. Being fat wasn't just personally shameful, it was un-American. Communist children were supposedly fitter than American children, which meant your body was a weapon in the ideological war. Think about the psychological pressure. You're not just disappointing your parents or failing to attract a mate. You're betraying your country. Your body fat is literally a threat to democracy. Then 1966 hits, and everything changes again. A 17-year-old girl named Leslie Hornby walks out of a London hair salon weighing 91 pounds at 5 feet 6 inches. And suddenly the entire world loses its goddamn mind. Twiggy wasn't just thin, she was skeletal. But she wasn't presented as sick or concerning. She was presented as the future of beauty. Suddenly, every teenage girl in the world was starving herself to achieve the Twiggy look. The timing wasn't coincidental. The 1960s youth revolution needed its own beauty standard, one that rejected the curvy mother's generation ideals. But instead of finding something healthier, they chose something even more extreme. By the late 1970s, the thin ideal merged with the fitness craze, and Jane Fonda became the high priestess of a new religion: exercise as salvation. Her 1982 workout video sold 17 million copies and spawned an industry worth billions. But here's the really sick irony. Jane Fonda had battled bulimia since her teens. The woman teaching America how to have a perfect body was secretly binging and purging. In her autobiography, she later wrote, "I was raised in the 1950s. I was taught by my father that how I looked was all that mattered, frankly. So the fitness guru who taught millions of women to obsess over their bodies was herself a victim of the beauty obsession. The blind leading the blind into aerobics hell." In 1983, pop singer Karen Carpenter died of heart failure related to anorexia nervosa. She was 32 years old and weighed 108 pounds at 5 feet 4 inches. Her death briefly shocked America into recognizing that the thin ideal could be literally deadly. But here's what's really fucked up. Even after her death, people continued to praise her discipline and control. The same magazines that had celebrated her tiny frame barely mentioned the eating disorder that killed her. Karen Carpenter's death should have been a wake-up call. Instead, it became another cautionary tale that people ignored while continuing to pursue the same deadly ideal that killed her. The 1980s gave us something new and terrible: supermodels as celebrities. Suddenly, the face selling the product became more valuable than the product itself. Beauty wasn't just an attribute, it was an industry, a brand, a lifestyle to aspire to. When Cindy Crawford's Pepsi commercial debuted during the 1992 Super Bowl, it wasn't selling soda. It was selling the fantasy that you could look like her if you just tried hard enough. The message wasn't, "She's one in a million." It was, "Why aren't you more like her?" Meanwhile, men were developing their own body dysmorphia epidemic. The average action hero in 1980 had a naturally achievable physique. By 1990, Hollywood bodies routinely required steroids, specialized diets, and full-time training, facts carefully hidden from the public. Men started injecting themselves with synthol to create fake muscles, abusing steroids until their hearts exploded, and developing eating disorders that nobody talked about because male body dysmorphia was supposedly impossible. The 1980s created the modern gym bro culture that's still poisoning young men today. The direct line from Schwarzenegger to TikTok fitness influencers isn't just aesthetic, it's psychological. Both eras convinced men that physical transformation was necessary for respect and success. Just when you thought beauty standards couldn't get more death-obsessed, the 1990s said, "Hold my eating disorder," and introduced heroin chic. Kate Moss, weighing maybe 100 pounds soaking wet, became the new ideal with her hollow cheeks, dark circles, and skeletal frame. The beauty standard literally looked like drug addiction. Models were supposed to appear on the verge of death, pale, gaunt, and ethereally wasted. The most famous quote of the era? "Nothing tastes as good as skinny feels." By the late 1990s, photo editing software was becoming widespread, but most people didn't know it existed. Suddenly, the impossible became the expected. Magazine covers featured women who didn't actually exist, digital composites of multiple bodies, airbrushed into inhuman perfection. But because this technology was invisible to consumers, people assumed these images were real. They developed body dysmorphia, trying to achieve looks that were literally impossible because they were computer-generated. Let's recap the psychological carnage of the 20th century. The diet industry convinced people their natural appetite was the enemy. The fitness craze turned exercise from joy into punishment. A supermodel culture made ordinary beauty feel worthless. A male body standards became equally impossible and dangerous. Photo editing made fictional bodies seem real and achievable. The beauty industry became a multi-billion-dollar empire built on self-hatred. The 20th century didn't solve body dysmorphia, it industrialized it, mass-produced it, and sold it back to us as empowerment. But if you think the 20th century was bad, buckle up. Because the digital age was about to make every previous era of body hatred look like amateur hour. Welcome to hell's newest level, the internet. It's 2003. And you're a 15-year-old girl sitting alone in your bedroom, typing a password to enter a private forum called Proana, short for proanorexia. This isn't just a support group for people struggling with eating disorders. This is a cult dedicated to perfecting the art of self-destruction. Inside, you find thinspiration photos of emaciated bodies, tips on how to hide your eating disorder from parents, and mantras like, "Nothing tastes as good as skinny feels." A quote that Kate Moss would later make famous. The Proana community created something that had never existed before. A support system for self-destruction. Medieval saints starved alone. Victorian women corseted in isolation. But now, eating disorders had gone viral. These forums taught girls how to survive on 200 calories a day, how to make themselves throw up more efficiently, how to hide the physical signs of starvation. They turned anorexia from a mental illness into a lifestyle choice with its own culture, language, and community. But the real horror show began in 2010 with the launch of Instagram. Suddenly, everyone became both model and audience, constantly displaying and consuming images that had been filtered, posed, and curated to digital perfection. Think about the psychological mindfuck. You're scrolling through your feed, comparing your real, unfiltered, badly lit bathroom mirror self to everyone else's highlight reel. But you don't know it's a highlight reel. You think this is just how everyone else looks when they wake up. Studies would later confirm what many already suspected. Increased social media use correlated directly with negative body image, especially among young women. The constant comparison, the immediate feedback mechanism of likes and comments, the algorithmic amplification of the most extreme bodies, it created a perfect storm for body dysmorphia. By 2015, plastic surgeons were reporting something bizarre. Patients weren't bringing in photos of celebrities anymore. They were bringing in selfies of themselves, but with Instagram filters applied. People were literally getting surgery to look like digital versions of themselves. The line between reality and augmented reality had completely dissolved. Then came Instagram Face, a curious blend of ethnically ambiguous features that appropriated from many cultures while representing none authentically. Suddenly, everyone wanted the same face. Kim Kardashian's curves, Bella Hadid's cheekbones, Kylie Jenner's lips, and a skin tone that suggested exotic heritage without committing to any specific ethnicity. In 2012, plus-size model Tess Holliday started the hashtag #FYourBeauty standards, and it felt like a revolution. The body positivity movement entered the mainstream with promises to liberate us from beauty tyranny. Suddenly, larger bodies were visible in advertising on runways in movies. Companies like Dove launched real beauty campaigns. It seemed like we were finally breaking free from the beauty industrial complex. Body positivity got co-opted faster than you could say, sponsored content. Its radical roots in fat activism, a movement started by and for fat people fighting discrimination, got diluted into a more marketable message of self-love that still centered conventionally attractive bodies. The same Instagram that promoted body positivity was simultaneously pushing diet products through influencer marketing. You could follow accounts celebrating body diversity and then immediately see ads for flat tummy tea. The cognitive dissonance was maddening. Then 2023 happened, and everything changed again. A diabetes medication called Ozempic became Hollywood's worst-kept secret for rapid weight loss. Tech billionaire Elon Musk publicly credited his weight loss to fasting plus Ozempic/Wegovy. Suddenly, the ultra-wealthy had access to pharmaceutical-grade appetite suppression that could eliminate hunger entirely. Think about the implications. For the first time in human history, the fundamental drive that kept our species alive, hunger, could be switched off with a weekly injection. The rich could literally edit their appetite out of existence. But here's the really sick part. Ozempic costs about $1,000 per month without insurance. This new form of body modification was available primarily to the wealthy, making thinness even more explicitly tied to class privilege. Meanwhile, diabetic patients who actually needed the drug couldn't get it because rich people were hoarding it for cosmetic weight loss. The body dysmorphia epidemic was now causing actual medical supply shortages. TikTok took body dysmorphia and gamified it. The platform's algorithm rewarded extreme content, pushing users toward increasingly dangerous body-related challenges. Body-checking videos where people obsessively examine and display their bodies went viral. Eating disorder content was repackaged as "What I Eat in a Day" videos featuring impossibly small portions. The pro-ana community didn't disappear. It just learned to speak in TikTok code. Hashtags like #bodychecking accumulated billions of views, creating a global network of people triggering each other's body dysmorphia in real time. The algorithm didn't care about mental health, it cared about engagement, and nothing gets engagement like self-hatred. Face filters became so sophisticated that people literally forgot what they looked like without them. Snapchat dysmorphia became a clinical term as people sought plastic surgery to look like their filtered selfies. Plastic surgeons reported patients bringing in photos that were physically impossible. Faces with proportions that would require breaking the laws of human anatomy. People developed body dysmorphia not just about their real bodies, but about the gap between their real faces and their digital avatars. The most disturbing part? Children as young as 8 were using face filters and developing dysmorphia about features they wouldn't even have as adults. We were giving elementary school kids the tools to hate faces they hadn't even grown into yet. COVID-19 lockdowns created the perfect conditions for body dysmorphia to flourish. People were trapped at home with nothing but mirrors, scales, and social media feeds full of fitness influencers telling them to use quarantine as an opportunity to glow up. The pressure to emerge from lockdown with a revenge body was enormous. People developed eating disorders, exercise addictions, and body dysmorphia at record rates. Mental health services were overwhelmed with people who had spent months staring at themselves on Zoom calls and hating what they saw. Meanwhile, men were finally catching up to women in the body hatred department. Gym bro culture exploded on social media, with influencers promoting impossible physiques achieved through steroids, perfect lighting, and photo editing. Young men started injecting themselves with performance-enhancing drugs, developing eating disorders, and obsessing over their bodies with the same intensity that had been torturing women for centuries. Body dysmorphia was now an equal opportunity destroyer. Here's the most terrifying part about modern body dysmorphia. It's algorithmic. Social media platforms have learned exactly how to trigger your insecurities to keep you scrolling. The algorithm notices you pause slightly longer on fitness content, so it floods your feed with impossible bodies. It detects that you engage with weight loss posts, so it serves you more diet culture content. It's literally designed to make you hate yourself just enough to stay addicted, but not so much that you leave the platform. We're not just dealing with cultural beauty standards anymore. We're dealing with artificial intelligence that has been trained to exploit our deepest insecurities for profit. The machines have learned to feed on human self-hatred, and they're getting very, very good at it. Let's be real about what the digital age has done to our relationship with our bodies. It made photo editing invisible and ubiquitous. It created 24/7 comparison culture through social media. A gamified self-hatred through likes and comments. Algorithmic amplification of extreme and dangerous content. A normalized surgical modification to look like digital filters. Created new forms of eating disorder communities. Made body dysmorphia profitable for tech companies. Eliminated the distinction between real and artificial beauty. The digital age didn't democratize beauty, it weaponized it. Every phone became a portal to infinite comparison. Every social media app became a tool for self-surveillance. Every filter became a way to hate your real face a little more. And we're just getting started. Because the real horror isn't what technology has done to our bodies. It's what it's done to our minds. We've created a generation that literally doesn't know what unfiltered human faces look like. We've raised children who think their natural appearance is a glitch that needs to be corrected. The scariest part? We did this to ourselves. We built the machines that are now destroying our self-image, and we can't figure out how to turn them off. But wait, just when it seemed like we were doomed to scroll ourselves into collective body dysmorphia, something beautiful started happening. A small army of therapists, nutritionists, and researchers began fighting back against the beauty industrial complex. Meet Christy Harrison, a nutritionist who literally wrote the book on how diet culture is fucking with our heads. Her message was revolutionary in its simplicity. What if the problem isn't your body? What if the problem is the culture that taught you to hate it? The anti-diet movement started dropping truth bombs that shattered everything we thought we knew about weight and health. A 95 to 98% of diets fail long-term. To weight cycling, yo-yo dieting, is worse for your health than being stable at a higher weight. The BMI was created by a mathematician, not a doctor, and was never intended as a health metric. Most obesity research is funded by the weight loss industry. Suddenly, the emperor had no clothes. The entire diet industry was exposed as a trillion-dollar scam built on guaranteed failure and manufactured self-hatred. But some people found body positivity just as exhausting as body hatred. How are you supposed to love a body you've been trained to hate for decades? Enter body neutrality, the radical idea that your body doesn't have to be the most interesting thing about you. Nutritionist Rowan Todd explained it perfectly. Your body doesn't have to be beautiful. It doesn't have to be anything other than the vessel that carries you through your life. Think about how revolutionary this is. For the first time in 1,500 years, someone was saying your body could just exist. Not be perfect, not be loved, not be optimized, not be displayed. Just be. Body neutrality asks different questions. What can your body do for you? What sensations can it feel? How does it help you live your life? Instead of do I look good? It asks, do I feel good? Meanwhile, Anthropologists and historians started pointing out something obvious that everyone had somehow missed. The thin ideal is not universal. It's not natural. It's not even old. In parts of West Africa, young women still attend fattening rooms before marriage, where they're fed rich foods to achieve desired plumpness. In Fiji, before Western television arrived in the 1990s, larger bodies were the cultural ideal and eating disorders were virtually unknown. This perspective was like a nuclear bomb dropped on Western beauty standards. If different cultures value completely different body types, then there's nothing natural or inevitable about our current obsession with thinness. It's just cultural programming that we can, theoretically, reprogram. Scientists also started understanding how our bodies actually work, and the news was shocking. Your weight is largely determined by hormones, genetics, and set point theory, not willpower or moral character. Research on leptin, the fullness hormone, and ghrelin, the hunger hormone, revealed that people's bodies naturally regulate to different weights. The idea that everyone could be thin if they just tried hard enough was scientifically false. Everything our grandmothers, mothers, and we ourselves had been told was basically bullshit. Your body has a natural weight range that it will fight to maintain. Trying to force it outside that range triggers biological mechanisms designed to prevent starvation, which is why diets fail and weight cycling happens. But then Ozempic complicated everything. Suddenly, you could medically override your body's natural hunger signals. The biological arguments for body acceptance were challenged by pharmaceutical intervention. Some people celebrated it as liberation from the tyranny of appetite. Others worried it was just diet culture with a prescription pad. The debate revealed how deep our cultural confusion about bodies, weight, and health really goes. Here's the mindfuck. Is using Ozempic body acceptance, accepting that some bodies need medical intervention, or is it the ultimate rejection of body acceptance, refusing to accept your natural appetite and weight? The answer probably depends on your individual situation, but the cultural conversation around Ozempic revealed that we still don't have a clear philosophy about what we owe our bodies and what they owe us. By 2023, even Instagram was trying to course correct. The platform started hiding likes in some regions, adding warnings to potentially harmful content, and trying to redirect eating disorder searches to mental health resources. But it was like trying to stop a tsunami with a beach umbrella. The damage was already done. An entire generation had grown up with filtered reality as their baseline for human appearance. Something interesting started happening between Gen Z and older generations. Gen Z, having grown up with Instagram filters and impossible beauty standards, began rejecting them more aggressively than their parents. Young people started posting deliberately unflattering photos, celebrating acne and body hair, and calling out the lies of beauty culture with a sophistication that previous generations lacked. They'd been raised on digital manipulation so they could spot it more easily. Gen Z created terms like Instagram versus reality posts, where influencers would show the difference between their curated content and their actual appearance. They developed a media literacy around beauty standards that was unprecedented. But let's be real. The body dysmorphia epidemic is far from over. Every breakthrough in body acceptance gets co-opted by the beauty industry. Every moment of progress gets commodified and sold back to us. Body-positive influencers start hawking wellness products. Anti-diet advocates get sponsored by food companies. The resistance gets absorbed into the machine it was trying to fight. Meanwhile, new forms of body modification keep emerging. BBLs, Brazilian butt lifts, have one of the highest death rates of any cosmetic procedure, but demand keeps growing. Face transplants are becoming more common. Gene editing might soon allow parents to choose their children's appearance before birth. Here's what really gets me. Even people who intellectually understand that beauty standards are bullshit still struggle with body dysmorphia. Knowledge doesn't automatically equal healing. You can read every body-positive book, follow every anti-diet influencer, understand the history and psychology of beauty standards, and still hate your reflection. Because body dysmorphia isn't just intellectual. It's stored in your nervous system, your muscle memory, your reflexive responses. You've inherited 1,500 years of women who were taught their bodies were wrong. That trauma lives in your cells. Every time you suck in your stomach, pinch your thighs, or avoid mirrors, you're channeling Catherine of Siena, Victorian corseted ladies, and every woman who was taught that her natural body was the enemy. We're living in the most contradictory time in history for body image. We have more knowledge about the psychology of beauty standards than ever before, but also more tools for self-surveillance and comparison. We understand the science of weight regulation, but we also have pharmaceuticals that can override our natural appetite. We celebrate body diversity in some spaces while still photoshopping our selfies. We're simultaneously the most body-positive and the most body-obsessed generation in human history. So here we are, at the end of our journey through 1,500 years of body horror. You've walked with saints who starved themselves to death, Victorian women who crushed their organs for beauty, flappers who bound their breasts, and influencers who filter their faces into digital fiction. And now I have to ask you the question that's been lurking beneath every beauty standard, every corset, every diet, every Instagram post. Who are you when you're not performing your body for other people? I know that's a terrifying question because most of us have been performing for so long that we don't remember who we are underneath the performance. The mirror has become our stage, our bodies have become our costumes, and we've forgotten that we're not actually the character we've been playing. Let's look at what every single era of beauty standards has had in common. 1. The standard was presented as natural and timeless. 2. It required suffering to achieve. 3. It made most people feel inadequate. 4. It changed completely within a generation or two. 5. It served someone else's economic or political interests. 6. It was enforced through shame and social pressure. Every single time. The medieval church needed women to be ashamed of their sexuality, so beautiful women looked like nuns. The Victorian era needed women to be physically constrained as they fought for political rights, so beauty required actual physical restriction. The modern era needs consumers for the beauty industry, so beauty requires constant purchasing and maintenance. Your body dysmorphia isn't a personal failing. It's a feature, not a bug, of systems that profit from your self-hatred. You're not broken. You're responding exactly as you were programmed to respond. But here's what really fucks me up. We're not just dealing with cultural programming. We're dealing with intergenerational trauma. Your grandmother starved herself, hated her body, and passed that hatred to your mother, who dieted obsessively and passed that obsession to you. The body dysmorphia in your family line goes back generations, each woman teaching the next that her natural body is wrong. You've inherited the nervous system responses of women who lived through famines, wars, and cultural oppression. Your body dysmorphia might be responding to threats that ended centuries ago. Here's the really scary question. If you're not your body, and you're not your performance of your body, then who the hell are you? Most of us have built our entire identity around either hating our bodies or trying to perfect them. If you remove the body obsession, what's left? This is why body acceptance is so terrifying. It's not just about learning to like your thighs. It's about completely rebuilding your sense of self around something other than your physical appearance. What if I told you that your body was never supposed to be beautiful? What if I told you that beauty was just something humans made up to create hierarchies and sell products? What if your body's job isn't to be looked at, but to live in? What if its purpose isn't aesthetic but functional? What if the most radical thing you could do is completely ignore whether you're beautiful and focus on whether you're alive? Here's a secret that the beauty industry doesn't want you to know. You don't have to have a relationship with your appearance at all. You can just exist in your body without constantly evaluating it. You can go days without thinking about how you look. You can eat food without calculating its impact on your appearance. You can move your body because it feels good, not because it burns calories. You can wear clothes that are comfortable instead of fashionable. But this freedom is absolutely terrifying because it means giving up the fantasy that if you just get your body right, everything else in your life will fall into place. The beautiful life you've been promised, the perfect relationship, the dream career, the unshakable confidence, was always a lie. Those things have nothing to do with your body size, your skin clarity, or your perfect selfie. The hardest truth is that even if you achieved every beauty standard perfectly, you would still be you with all your same problems, insecurities, and human limitations. The body was never the real issue. It was just easier to focus on than the actual complexity of being human. So here's your choice, and it's the same choice that every woman for the past 1,500 years has had to make. You can continue the cycle. You can pass on the body hatred to the next generation. You can keep feeding the machine that profits from your self-loathing. You can spend your life force trying to perfect something that was never supposed to be perfect. Or you can break the chain. You can be the woman in your family line who says, "Enough." You can refuse to hate your body, refuse to diet, refuse to apologize for taking up space. You can model for the young people in your life what it looks like to inhabit a body without shame. But breaking the chain means grieving everything you thought your body was supposed to give you. It means accepting that you're not going to be saved by the right skincare routine or workout plan. It means facing your life as it actually is, not as you hoped it would be once you fixed your body. You want to know what the real horror story is? It's not the medieval saints or the Victorian corsets or the Instagram filters. The real horror story is all the women who spent their entire lives hating their bodies and died never knowing what it felt like to be at peace in their own skin. The real horror story is all the time, energy, and life force that could have gone toward art, relationships, discovery, and joy, but instead went toward trying to shrink, perfect, and optimize bodies that were already miraculous exactly as they were. The real horror story is that we keep choosing the suffering. We keep volunteering for the torture. We keep signing up to hate ourselves even though we now know it's optional. This story doesn't have an ending because you're still writing it. Every day you choose whether to continue the 1,500-year tradition of body hatred or to finally put down the weapons you've been using against yourself. Catherine of Siena is dead. The Victorian ladies who crushed their organs are dead. The flappers, the 1950s housewives, the supermodels, they're all gone. But their voices live on in your head, whispering that you're not good enough, not trying hard enough, not perfect enough. You have the power to silence those voices. You have the power to end the cycle. You have the power to look in the mirror and see a human being instead of a project to be fixed. Your body dysmorphia is not a life sentence. It's a prison you can walk out of any time you choose. The door has always been unlocked. You just have to decide you deserve freedom. So I'll ask you one more time. Who are you when you're not at war with your body? Who are you when you're not trying to be smaller, prettier, more perfect? Who are you when you stop apologizing for existing in the skin you were born in? That person, the one who exists underneath all the self-hatred and body obsession. She's been waiting for you this whole time. She's been buried under centuries of other people's expectations and beauty standards and commercial messages. But she's still there. And she's beautiful not because of how she looks, but because of who she is when she's finally free. The beauty industrial complex is counting on you to keep hating yourself. They've built trillion-dollar industries on your insecurity. They need you to believe that you're broken so they can sell you the fix.